Hi everyone, welcome to this new video. So in this video, we're going to understand how we can able to create your first microservice and also perform all the CRUD operation. Uh, Initially, instead of CRUD, I used to pronounce like CURD. So basically, if you already know or if you don't know, CRUD means basically create, read, update, and delete operation. So we are going to create your first microservice with Spring Boot application, and we're going to perform all the CRUD operation in this video. So stick to this video and let's get started. Alright. So to do that, first thing what we need is we need our browser. Okay. So just open your browser and go for the website called or search as Spring Initializer. Okay. So just search for Spring Initializer. So let me do that. Spring Initializer. Alright, Spring Initializer over here. So in the Spring Initializer, what you have to give is you just need to mention what all the project details which you need to mention over here. So the language is Java over here and Maven, and the version by default it's set for 3.3.5. And here you need, this is the main thing. So where how you need to name the packages, so everything needs to be done over here. So since we are creating your first microservice, so let's give as first uh, microservice. So this is the name I'm giving, and the project name also I'm giving as first microservice. So I'm gonna give name it as like this. You can give the description whatever you want. So as of now, I'm gonna keep it something like this by default. All right. So you can choose the package either jar or war. So I'm gonna keep it as war by default. So the version is 17, Java version 17, and the dependencies which we are going to add over here is so there are three main important dependencies which we need to add, but I'm going to add four. So what is that extra one? I'll tell you. So first thing, obviously we need a Spring Web. So let's add Spring Web over here. And the second one we need, since we are performing a CRUD operation, so we need JPA as well. So if you see over here, a little bit description, data in SQL stored with Java persistent API using Spring Data and Hibernate. All right. So JPA, we are where we are going to perform the CRUD operation. So we need JPA for that. And the second one, third one, which we need is H2 database. All right. So H2 database is also called as a lightweight database, and it's a fast in-memory database which supports JDBC API, Java database connection. All right. So JDBC, Java database connection. All right. So yes, H2 database is called as a lightweight database as well, where you can able to run your database in the browser itself for using with this dependency. So these are the main dependencies which we need, and our project setup is done. So I said I'll be adding one more dependency, and that is going to be is DevTools. So Spring DevTools. So Spring Dev, just search for Dev. You're going to get your DevTools. So usually I add this person. I like this dependency because when you are working on a project, when you save the file which you have worked on, so every time you need to restart the application again and again and again and again, so on. So instead of that, if we add this particular dependency, we can able to when we save the file, it automatically reloads, the application reloads. So basically you can see over here it says live reload. So that's the reason. So DevTools. So everything is done. So now let's click on generate. All right. So it is going to generate a zip file over here. So here is our zip file, first microservice. So I'm going to change the location for now. Like whatever the code here I am typing, and you can take it. So I'll put it in the GitHub itself. I'll give the source code in the description. So please do check that as well. So here I'm going. So first microservice. All right. Okay, it's not getting saved. All right. So as of now, let me put it in the downloads and I'll extract it over here. Let's keep it in the download and I'll extract to the folder which I need. So it's been downloaded. Let me go to that downloads folder. Okay. So let's go back to this folder where I want this to be. All right. So first microservice, let me extract this quickly. All right. So this has been extracted now. So now the next step is you have to, okay, I don't need this zip file anymore. So I'm going to delete this zip file. So here is our project folder. All right. So now let's go back to the Eclipse. So let's come back to the Eclipse or go back to the Eclipse, whatever you want. All right. Okay, so now what we need to do, we need to load our project to our IDE. So I am using Eclipse IDE. So if you are familiar with IntelliJ or any other IDE means you can use that. So as of now, I'm using Eclipse IDE over here. So there are two ways to import the project. Here in the package explorer, just click a right button and go for import option. So wherever you have saved your project, so there you can redirect to that project directly. So here it is Maven, existing Maven project, because it's been already generated from Spring Initializer. So that's the reason. Let's go for next and browse. So here I'm going for here. Okay, this is the folder. All right, so this is our first microservice project folder is over here. So just select folder and click on finish. So form.xml file. So what are the dependency you're going to add? Everything will be there in the form.xml file. Okay, so let's click on finish. At the bottom right side where my video is visible, so there you can see there here it's loading. Import the project is getting imported. So let's that it will take some time to get import. So based on your system speed sometimes, so mine it won't take much time. And if we see here we have our first microservice application is ready. So still import is not yet complete, so we need to wait couple of seconds or sometimes minutes. So in my case it's not going to take much time. So yes, it's loading, still it's loading. Yes, almost it's done, but in the meantime let me explain this. The first thing, the configuration which we are going to add is to the database configuration. Okay, so we have added a dependence called h2 database, right? And the database configuration, everything will be done in the application.properties file. So here at the source main Java resource, you can see able to see the file called application.properties file. And sometimes if you're working in the company or you're just starting, so sometimes it would be a YAML file as well. YAML file or application.properties file. All right. So here you can you need to add your configuration. So now here I'm directly pasting it over here. So this is the configuration I'm directly pasting over here. It's not required to remember. So this is the default configuration of the application or the database. So I'll put this in the description itself. You can take that. And also, what if we need when it's required? See, it's very simple. If you go to the browser, if you search for h2 database configuration for Spring Boot, so you'll directly get this everything. So you just need to name your username and the password. So this is the name and the password I have given by myself. So everything will be given over here. And here I have given data source name as URL. So I'll talk about this user. So this also user defined, which means I define. So this I have defined by me, and also the username and also the password as well. The rest everything will be the same. And also one more thing, here it says Spring H2 console enabled is equal to true. So basically, if you want to access your H2 database in the browser, means you need to add this URL. I mean this property. So that's the reason h2 console enabled is equal to true. If you give false, you can't able to access it. All right. So now let's okay. So let's start our application, and we'll try to access the h2 database first. All right. Okay. So after this, I'm going to explain what we are going to do in our first microservice application. So let's start our application first. So what you can do, expand source main Java, click on your first microservice application.java. So here it's the main method. Obviously, I hope yeah, you might be knowing. So all our program execution will start from main method itself, right? So main is the function or the method. So let's select this, click a right button, go for run as, run as Java application. All right. So here, if you are using Eclipse, you can directly you can able to see the application is getting started. Oh, okay, one more thing, what I'll do is after in the main function, what I'll do, I'll write one print statement for s. Okay, s by s is system.out.println. I'm going to say application started. All right. So this is for my understanding purpose, to understand that application has been started or not. So if you see at the last, I can see application has been started. So now, since the application has been already started and also we have made the H2 database configuration or the database configuration. So let's go to our browser over here. So here, this is the URL. So yeah, one more thing I'll show you over here. So by default, your application will be running at the port number 8080. Okay. So localhost colon 8080 slash h2 console. So I'll give the h2 console link in the description as well. So if you don't remember, it is h2 dash console. All right. So when you here, you want to see the console something like this. So see user. So in the sense, okay, let me show you here. So here I have given name as user, right? So user means this is the table name I'm which I'm giving. So the username is username is Vasu and password is password, right? So I'll explain a little bit more on this in a while. So let's give the username has been already there. So let's give the password and click on test connection, test successful. Let's give the password again and click on connect. So you will be redirected to this page. As of now, just remember H2 console, HTTP console has been enabled and we can able to access it in the browser level. All right. So let's go back to our application again. Means our editor again. All right. Okay. So now let me explain what we are going to do. So we need to perform the CRUD operation and CRUD operation on what? So I'll take an example of an user. See every application. See what all the application which you are going to build at the end, the users, the people has to use those applications, right? Correct. So I'm going to take a user property or I'm going to take a model name as a user and then with the same user model or the entity I'm going to perform the CRUD operation. So which means I need to create an user. I need to get means read an user means what are the user data has been saved. I need to read that user. I need to update the user like username etc. And if I need to delete the user. So these are all the CRUD options which I will be performing on the user. Create, updating user information, deleting the user, and also getting the user information. So these are the operation which I will be performing. So now for that we need to create some couple of packages over here. So the first package which I am going to create is model. Okay. So since it's Spring Boot project, we need to follow the naming convention. So com.first for reason, I'll just copy the name. Okay, so that I won't make any spelling mistake over here. So select source main Java, click a right button, go for new, go for package. Com.first microservice, the package, the naming convention is very important over here. Dot model. This is the first package I am creating. So this package will contain our model or the entity. All right. So as of now, we don't. Yeah, let's give it no problem. So let's create one more package, new package com dot first microservice dot next is going to be, let's say I'm going to use keep it as a repo. Okay, repo means repository. All right. The next thing we are going to use, next package we'll be creating is let's say service. Okay, dot service. All right. The next package which we'll be creating is controller. Okay, dot controller. All right. So we have created four different packages over here. So let's start with the model package. So the model package, what we are going to do means we are going to create a user model. Okay, let's create a user model. So just click a right button on the package, go for new, go for class, and the name which we are going to give is user, and click on finish. Okay, so here is our user model has been ready. All right, so just we need see this is the uh what, so this is a file which we have created, correct? So how can the Spring Boot application is going to understand that this is our model, right? So what we're going to do, we are going to mention it as, see, when I start the application I want this user table also be created automatically. So for that we need to add the annotation. The first annotation I'm going to add is entity. So just import it. So see earlier in Java version 8 the import used to be java.persistence.entity. Now we are using Java 17 and Java 21 versions is using Jakarta. Okay, Jakarta. The naming convention has been changed. All right. So first annotation is done, and next one is we are going to create. We are going to add a table annotation table. So what is the table name which you want to give is name is equal to, I'm going to give the table name as, let's say, okay, just import this table as well. So just hover your mouse. Let me import it quickly. Import table from Jakarta as well. Okay. Okay. Now it's done. Okay. So make sure how we are following this. All right. Table I'm just giving as user. You can give any table you want. All right. So if you want to create a customer model or employee model, student model, anything you want. As of now, I'm just taking a user. Even the customer, the employee, and the student, all are users. Right. Correct. All right. So, what are the things you need in the database? So, what are the information you want to store? What are the information you need for a user? All right. So, first thing, every user will be having an ID. It's going to be a primary key. So, let's say private. I'm going to give long ID. All right. The next thing, let's say, obviously, every user will be having their name. So, I'm going to give name. Let's say like this. Okay, id name, and let's give one mail id. So private string email, let's say private uh, int, the private int age, and private string address. All right, so these are the information I have added over here. Okay, so one more thing which we need to add is, to whenever a user information you're storing, for example, let's say you are adding one user, let's say username is Tony Star. So in the first row or the first one, the user ID is going to be 1. So when you add another username, let's say Chris, so it's going to auto increment the first value, it's going to be second and third, fourth. So whenever you keep on adding the user, the ID also should keep on incrementing. So for that, what we are going to add is, the first thing we need to make Spring Boot application understand that this is an ID. Okay, this is an ID. Let's import that. The second thing is we need to make it auto generated. So for that, what we are going to do is generated value, generated value. So it's been imported for here. And one more thing, strategy. Strategy. We need to mention the type. So generation type I'm going to give as dot is identity. All right. So this is going to be generation type is going to be identity over here. All right. So we have all the user model has been created over here. So these are all the information which I'll be using for the user to store data, retrieve or delete. So now one more thing, what we need means we need to generate the getters and setters over here, and also we need the constructor as well. So just click a right button over here in the Eclipse. Suppose if you are using IntelliJ IDE, means you can able to use yeah, you can install a lamp book, and everything will be performed with that. So as of now in the Eclipse we can generate it as well. So source, generate getters and centers, select everything, generate. So here you can see all the getters and setters has been created. All right, see over here. It starts from here. When you want to get an ID, we're going to use this method. When you want to get a name, we're going to use this method. When you want to set a name, a new name, so we're going to use this name, this method. All right, so let's create one constructor, source, generate constructor from superclass, generate, and we're going to generate one more user, one more constructor, generate constructor using field. Make sure everything is checked and generate. So here our model has been created, which is user model has been created. All right, so the first step is done. The next step, what we are going to do is we are going to create a user service. Means what are the operations we need to perform on the user. So as I said, we need to perform CRUD operation for the user. So which means what are the operations which we need to perform, that we need to define it in the service layer or in the repo layer over here. Okay. In the service layer, we have repo layer, and also if you remember, we have added the dependency, right? So we have added the dependency called JPA. So in the JPA dependency, we can get a JPA repository as well. So the JPA repository, in a small brief, in the sense, the JPA repository have defined all the methods. For example, to create, means to save, to delete, or delete by ID, and read operation means find all operation. So there are all inbuilt operation already present in the JPA repository. So we can use the JPA repository by implement or extending that JPA repository in our repo. So in the repo layer, we are going to create we are going to create the interface. Okay, and the interface name I'm going to give as user repository, and here I'm going to extend JPA repository. So extends JPA repository. All right. See, we have this has been imported from the data.jpa repository, which is JPA repository. All right. So here we're going to give what type of data which will be storing. So which is going to be user type of data, right? So user, and here the user model, the generating value is going to be id of type long. So that's why we're going to give the type as well over here as long. So here if you see, the user is giving an error. That's because this is a separate file in the different package, this is a separate file in a different package, right? So we need to use that user model inside a repository. So we'll import it over here. If you see, now the user has been imported from com.first or first microservice.model.user. So which is com.first microservice.model.user is our model. Alright, so if you want to cross verify, just press control button and click on this. You will be redirected to this particular file automatically. Alright. So yes, no need to define any other methods over here because we are using JPA repository. We can directly use it from here. So first, let me go to the JPA repository and let me explain a little bit more on JPA repository quickly. So let's go for open declaration. Let me go for open declaration directly. So if you see, I'll show you the operation, few operations over here. Let's say find all means to search for a user, and get by ID to get a user, and delete operation. All the CRUD operation is present. Save. Alright. So all this operation is present in the JPA repository. Alright. So now what we are going to do, let's create our service. So in the service, what are the methods is defined in the JPA that we need to implement it. So alright. So let's go to the service layer, click on new, go for class. We are going to create as user service is the method name or the file name. Alright, the file name, and what we are going to do means we are going to implement this user repository. We are going to implement it. Alright, so how are we going to do it? Using the keyword called implement. Okay, or yeah, that's the first thing. So okay, I'll show you implements. Most people does like that. So when you do it, let me import this. Alright, so you're getting an error. So if you go this, when you click on add unimplemented methods, means what all the method is defined in user repository. So user repository in the sense JPA repository. So all the methods we need to implement it over here. So I'll show you over here. Okay, see, if you see, there are a lot of methods which has been auto generated. It's been override from the JPA repository, but in our case we don't want to do all this operation. We don't want to implement all this operation, correct? So for that reason, we are not going to implement this. Okay. Means what we are doing, I'll show you. Okay, first, what just happened? Yeah. So it's everything is deleted. What I'm going to do, I'll create the object of this user repository and I'll auto wire it. Okay. First thing, we need to make sure our application understand that this is the user service or this is a service which the implementation is there. So we're gonna define or annotate this as service annotation. All right. So now user repository. Okay. So let's say like this, private user repository, and creating an object of this. So user repo, I'm gonna give or name it as user repo. So let's import this user repository and we'll add annotation and make it auto var. All right, like this. Okay. So now what are the methods which only we need to perform, we can do with this particular. All right. So let's create our first method, or let's implement our first method over here. All right. The first method which we are going to implement is, let's say I'm typing over here public list of, okay, let me keep it as this, I'll explain it. So find all this is a method name. Okay. So now this needs to return user repo dot find all semicolon. Okay. So I have implemented one method over here. So this method basically what does does is, all right, cool. So this is going to find all the users which is present in the user database table. Getting? So which means it's a read operation. Got it? CRUD. In that first one which we are going to do is read operation. All right. So now what type of data we need to get, or what type of data this method need to return. So we need a user type of data needs to be written. So that's why I'm mentioning the list type, means all this data is going to be written in the form of list of type user. So let's import the list first, and next let's import the user. If you see, user has been imported from the model over here. Okay. The read operation is done. So let's go for the next one. So let's say, mm, let's say cr. So okay, let's create it first. Okay. So public user, and the method name is going to be save, and user, and this is going to return user repo dot save, and inside this we're going to pass the user over here. All right. So this is going to be create method. All right. Yes. So what this method, here I'm passing one parameter of user which is of type user. Means if you want to create a user, we need to pass the user type of data, right, which is id, name, email, address, age, everything whatever and all we have defined in the model level. So that type of data we need to pass it to the repository. So the jp repository has the same method. So from the user repo dot save, we are passing whatever the information which we are sending. So when we run this method, what are the values which will be sending for the user, that data will be saved with the this particular save method. All right. So create is done, read is done. Now the update. All right. Required to write a separate, or it's not, there isn't a separate update method in JPA repository. The create repository itself can be a update method or update operation. All right. So now the next method which we are going to do is, see here we have given as find all. So what if we want to fetch only one, like one particular type of user? Let's say whose user age is more than 18 or user age is less than 15, something like that. So we can specify that. So let's say public user, we need to find the user. So let's say find user, let's say find user, let's say instead of age we'll give the id. So we'll find the user based on the id for now. So find user, by id. Okay, so in this we need to pass the id over here. All right, so this needs to return user repo dot find by id, and we are going to pass the id which will be sending. So every user will be having their own id, right? So based on id we are going to find the user. All right, so let's save this. Oh yeah, why there's an what? Okay, there's an error over here, which means what if the user is not available? Let's say you have only 10 users which has 10 IDs, and you are searching for the user that has the ID of 25. The user doesn't exist. So in that case what we are going to do is dot, or else if it is not there just return null, nothing, which is empty. All right, so this is going to be same as this, which is read operation. All right, done. The next one is going to be delete. All right, so let's say public, we want to delete it, so it's not required to return anything, so I'm going to give as public void delete user, and we want to delete the user based on id. How we are finding the user based on id? I'm going to delete the user based on the id itself, so it's going to be something like this. All right, so user repo dot delete by id, and I'm going to pass the id over here. So here all our core operation implementation has been done over here. So now we need to test this whether this is working or not. All right, so now to access or to test all these methods or to perform all this operation we need controller, right? So we need controller in the Spring Boot. All right, so let's go to controller package, click a right button, go for new, go for class, and I'm going to create a controller name as user controller over here. User controller, see, our Spring application doesn't understand that this is the controller, so we need to annotate this as a rest controller. Okay, rest controller. All right, rest controller. Yeah, this much is done. Okay, so let's create our APIs one by one. Before that we need to auto wire the user service. So private user service. Why we are auto wiring it? Because we need to use the methods, right? We need that methods to get the data or perform the operations. So this is the object of user service and auto wiring it. All right, so auto wire. Okay, now let's create the APIs. We are creating the APIs one by one. First thing, let's say public list of type user. We need list of user types needs to be written, so get all users, and this needs to return from the user service dot, what is the method we need to use? What is the method we need to use? We need to use find all. Okay, so semicolon. Let's import the list and let's import the user, and the API name I'm going to give as get mapping. I'm going to say users. Okay, whenever the slash user is given for the URL or the endpoint, we can able to get all the user data. So if you go for here find all, will be redirected over here where the implementation is there. Okay, if you see observe over here. Okay, so what are the operation we are performing, or what are the implementation which we have done, so we can able to get this. Okay, this is a get operation. All right, the first API is has been created, so let's create the second API now. So let's say public. Okay, so next what we have, let me check. So we have this is done, sorry, this is done. So let's say create save. Okay, so let's do that. So public user create user. Okay, create user. If you observe over here, create user is taking a parameter called user, right? So we need to pass that parameter in the browser level or in the front end level. Okay, so in that case what we're going to do, we're going to mention it as request body. Request body, what type of data we need? We need user type of data like this. Okay, so this he is going to return user service dot same method. Got it? Done. The second API, the method is done. So let's make it as this as API. So post mapping. So when you are adding something, when you're creating something, we're going to use the mapping is post mapping. Okay, post mapping. Let's or a mouse and import this. The method or the API name I'm going to give as add user. Okay, means we are creating a user, so that's why I'm going to give the API name as add user. The next API which we're going to create is, so 2 is done, find user by ID. So let's find the user by ID or get the user by ID. Let's say public user get user by ID. So we need to pass the user. I'm going to pass the user in the URL level. I'll show you. So instead of request body, I'm going to give as path variable. I'll explain this path variable when we are testing the application. So path variable. So we need to pass the ID. So it's of type long. So ID like this. Okay. So now return user service dot find user by ID, which is going to pass. I'm going to pass the ID over here. Okay. So see here again, this is throwing an error. Why? What is the reason? Okay, let's create this API over here. So the API is going to be get map because we're getting the user. So get mapping, and the mapping name I'm going to give as, let's say, user, say user slash this how. See, in the URL itself or in the endpoint itself, whenever we give the ID, let's say 1, 2, 3 over here at this particular part, so that same value will be passed over here, and the same ID will be passed to the this particular method. All right, so 3 API is done. So now we are left with the last API, which is delete. Okay, so let's say public void delete user, and also we're going to delete the user based on the path variable. So I'm going to give as path variable, and I'm going to pass the ID as well. So it's going to be user service dot delete user by ID like this. Let me go to the user again. What is the method name which I have given? Okay, it's the delete user. That's correct. So delete user ID, and here I'm going to create the API. So when you want to delete something, then you need to use the method or the mapping name is delete mapping. Okay, delete mapping, and let's say delete user. All right. Okay. Let me create a one more API over here. I'm going to copy this, paste it. I'll make it as put mapping. Instead of add user, I'm going to make it as update user. Okay. So here even this also update. That's all. See, I'm using the same method, but the API is different. The mapping is different. We'll test this and we'll see how it is going to be. All right. The application has been started already. There's no issues as of now. So rest everything is done. So let me close all the files. I'll give a brief again. So we have created an application where we did the database configuration as well, and we have created 1, 2, 3, 4 different packages. first package is user model, and the second package contains the uh, interface, which all the operation which we need to perform will be defined over here. In our case, we are using the JPA repository directly because it has all the inbuilt methods, and we are implementing the user repository over here. So what are the methods we need? So we need to find the user, we need to save the user, we need to update a user, and also we need to find the user by their ID, and we are going to delete the user as well. So all this implementation, we will be creating an API in the user controller. User controller will be there in the controller packages. So here we have created 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 different APIs, which is get the users, get the user details, add the user details, and update the user details, and find the user based on the user ID, and delete the user based on the user ID. So everything is done. Our application has already been started. By default, your application will be running at the port number, or your first microservice will be running at the port number 8080. If you want to, let's say you are having multiple microservice and you want to change the microservice port number, you can go for server.port equal to, you can make it as 8081, and if I save it, the application is going to restart. And now if you see over here, the application is running, or your microservice is running at the port number 8081. So this is how we can able to create different multiple microservice and give the port number different for them. All right, so here as of now we have created our first microservice, our first microservice, and we are performing the CRUD operation. So now it's time for to test our application. So before that, what I'm going to do is, see, let's go to the user controller. If you want to get the user, first thing always, it's very, if you want to test it, always go for the get mapping, because while adding, you might make some mistakes, like like giving commas or quotes in the JSON level. So that's the reason. So what we are going to do is, let's go to the database first. All right, here is our H2 console, and yes, I forgot to say word here. Since every operation is all on the user, so that's the reason I have given the database, or the database name as user, and the table is going to be the user itself. All right, don't get confused with this. Okay. Oh, the, I guess, application. Oh yes, we have changed the port number right over here, so it has to be 8081 now. So now we are good. So let's give the password. Okay, if you want, since I've tested the connection earlier, it's going to work. I'm going to give connect directly, and here we are. So let me add the query, the first insert query over here. See, now you observe the user table has been created, right? So, oh, oops. Okay, okay. If you see, one row has been updated. So if I expand this, okay, let me do like this. Select start from user. So there is little bit different in H2 database. We need to give codes as well, like this. So select start from user. So if you see, we can able to see the ID, address, age, email, and the name has been inserted. All right. So as of now, I have inserted one value. Okay. Now what we need is, see, we can able to perform. Okay. So we know that our application at the port now, our application is running at the port number 8081, and the first API which I'm going to use is, let me go to the controller. The API name I'm going to give as users. Okay, slash users. So let me come back here, slash 8081 slash users. So when I do this, whatever the value is saved in the database, that user I can able to see it over here. See, Tony, email, age, address. So you might be seeing the value something like this, but I can see the value like this. That's because I have added an extension called JSON formatter. All right. Oh yes. Okay. So now one more thing I was saying. So we can able to use only the get mapping in the browser. Okay. We can't able to use this mapping, which is post mapping, put mapping, and delete mapping as well. And also we can use this, since it's a get mapping, we can get the user based on the ID. Since we have only one user, obviously it's going to be Tony Stark itself, or Tony itself. So how we gonna test these other APIs? For that, we need one external application which is post mapping. Okay, so I have already the video present how to install the post mapping in your Windows system. I don't have for the Mac, but yes, it's almost similar in the Mac because I don't have much idea on the Mac. So yes, so let's you guys can download. If you're using Mac, means you can download and install the post mapping. So now here post mapping is getting open, so we need to wait. Sometimes we see here it's loading at the center. So let's wait for a few seconds and let's see. All right, the Postman has been opened here. Okay, maximize. All right, so let me go for the new tab. So I'll go to the browser. Let me go to the browser over here. I'll copy this endpoint because I want this end, I think HTTP everything. So that's it. I don't want to type it again. Okay. So here, since it's a get mapping, so the mapping here it is get. If I click on send, what all the user present in the database will be extracted here. Now, the first step is done. So if I'll copy this one, okay, I'll go for a new tab. Let me close the other tab we created earlier. Save, close. Okay, so let's test for the post mapping. So we're gonna add a user using Postman. The mapping is going to be post and the API. Oops, let me copy the URL over here, paste it, and the API name which we have given here is add user. So let me paste the add user over here. Then we need to pass the value. See, it's expecting a user data to be sent, right? So we'll send the user data. So I'll just copy the format because I need the format, and I'll go for the body, go for raw, and change from text to JSON and paste it here. So the ID, okay, it's not required. ID is not required for us for now. So let me give it a name. Let's say name. Let's say Chris. Okay, Chris, and Chris at example dot com, and age I'm going to give Chris age as 35, and instead of ST I'm going to give GT. All right, cool. So now post mapping is done, API is correct. Just click on send and let's see whether it's working or not. So it's giving an error. The reason because of the primary key, it's not getting auto incremented properly. So we'll pass the ID as well. But sometimes it works. I mean, most of the time it works, but sometimes it doesn't work. So for that, I'm going to give ID automatically from here itself. So I'm going to give ID directly. So click on send. So now we don't have any issues. So see over here. Now I'm going to run the previous API again. Users. When I click on send, if you see, we have Tony and Chris as well. So let me add one more user. So let's say 3, and I'm going to give as banner, and banner is the one more next user. So banner age I'm going to give as 40, and GT I'm going to give as XT. All right, so T in smaller case. So let's add this banner also. So no issues as of now. Let's go back to the get user again. Just click on send. See, we have added Tony, we have added Chris, and we have added banner. If you go to a browser as well again, if I refresh the same page, you can see Tony, Chris, and banner has been added. So if you want to cross check in the database, just select start from user. You can see all these user has been added in the browser level. So let's test the next API, which is update the user value. So what I'm going to do, I'll copy this new tab, pasting over here. The mapping name is going to be put mapping, and let me copy the endpoint name, which is update user. Okay, so if you are updating the user, we need to pass the updated values, right? So let's say body, raw, and JSON, pasting it over here. For the same value, the banner, let's say banner 1. All right, so I'll click on send. Okay, if you see, the name has been changed to banner1. So if I go to the get user and send the request again, if you see, instead of banner, now it's changed to banner1. Got it? So the put mapping is working for the same method. Got it? The mapping is different. Got it? The user is getting updated. Cool. Next, get user based on the IDs. So I'm going to give, let me copy the same. Okay, so this is also a get mapping. Instead, get the user based on the ID, I'm going to give as one user one get mapping. When you send the request, you're going to get the user based on the ID. So one ID is Tony. If I give 3, send the request, here it's going to be banner1. Got it? So this API is also working. The next one is deleting the user. So delete the user based on the values. So yeah, I was about to explain about the path variable work here. So path variable in the sense is this one. See, here you are passing the numbers, the ID, the same ID will come over here. The same path variable, like whatever the value which you're giving at the path, that will be sent in the method. Alright. So next, the delete user. Oh yes, copy, paste, delete user. Let me copy this and like this, delete user. So here, that's why I delete. And one more thing, there is one mistake at the API level. See, I haven't given the path variable like this. See, now if I modify it, our entire application is going to restart. And whatever the data we have saved, everything will be erased. That's one problem, but yeah, no problem. So let's change it. It has ID. Okay, the application is going to restart it again. Done. So let's go to the post mapping again, because we see, if I do the get, if you see, everything will be deleted. See, everything has been deleted because server has been restarted, right? That's the reason. So let's add the user. The banner has been added, and let's give for one. Let's say this time I'm going to give as Tony, Tony, 33 this time, XT. All right. So two users are enough. So send the get request again. We have okay, one user has been added. Banner has not been added. So let's add the banner again. Or let's say this time we add Tom. Okay, since Tom Holland, right? 18 years, and I'll give the address the same. Send the request. Oops, I forgot to change the ID when updated. Yeah, post mapping, foot mapping also works. So that's one thing. To give it as Tony and Tony and the age as 30. The address is the same. Then the request. Okay. So get request. Two users has been added. One is Tom and one is Tony. So let's go to the delete. Go here. So if I want to delete Tony, which is the ID is 2. When I give 2, when I click on send. Okay. So there is no issues. When I go for get and send the request, see that Tony has been deleted. So let's delete the last user as well. So let's give 2 instead of 1, 1 instead of 2. So let's send the request again. So the Tom, the user has also been deleted when I send the request. So there is no users present in the database because we have deleted all the users in the database. Got it? So, and one more thing, congratulations that you have created your first microservice, and you can change your microservice port number or your application or the microservice port number at the application.properties file with the server.port. All right. So we have changed from 8080 to 8081. All right. And yeah, so we have created CRUD operation, and you have created your first microservice and performed all the CRUD operation on the user. All right. So yes, I hope you enjoyed in this video. I hope you learned something new in this video. So if you're new to our channel, please do subscribe it, and if you like this video, please do like this video, and please share it to your friends, colleagues, brother, sister, anyone, and be a part of Learning Mighty family. So let's meet in our next video. Until then, take care. Goodbye. Bye bye. From all the CRUD operation. When I initially started, I was pronouncing as CRUD instead of take two. Hi one, welcome to back. Take three. Hi one, welcome to take four.